Some betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people you'd die for. Thanksgiving night, my house was full of laughter, but none of it sounded like mine. My son stood at the head of the table, grinning too wide, holding out a plastic bag full of cold scraps. "This is your food now," he said. "Freeload." For a second, I couldn't move. The boy I'd raised, fed, and loved was looking at me like I was a stranger. I didn't cry, I didn't speak, I just turned, went upstairs, and by sunrise I was gone. The next morning the phone rang. His voice cracked with panic. "Mom! My card's not working. What did you do?" Pause. Beat. He didn't know it yet, but that Thanksgiving was the last free meal he'd ever get from me. Homes don't break overnight. They fade, one holiday at a time. There was a time when Thanksgiving meant warmth, the hiss of the oven, the hum of the radio, the smell of cinnamon and sage drifting through every room. But that night, the laughter downstairs didn't sound like family. It sounded like strangers living in my home. I was lying on my bed, still wearing my old apron, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning slow and tired. Every bone in my body hurt. Every thought in my head ached worse. For 3 days I'd cooked, scrubbed, folded, stocked the fridge, because Owen and Jessica promised they'd handle dinner. Their version meant takeout sides and 12 of their friends. Mine meant paying for everything. The turkey, the wine, the power bill. The turkey had been huge, 22 pounds of effort. I brined it myself. No one asked me to. It was just habit. A mother's habit of caring even when it hurts. When I lay down just for 10 minutes, I thought it'd be harmless. When I opened my eyes again, it was dark. The clock read 7:15. Downstairs, laughter echoed, wine glasses clinking, voices overlapping, some woman's fake giggle cutting through the noise. I stood, slipped on my slippers, and followed the sound. The air smelled like grease and spilled wine. Each creaking step down the stairs felt like walking toward a truth I didn't want to see. When I reached the dining room, everything froze. 12 strangers turned to stare. Forks midair, mouths half open. The table was chaos. Empty bottles, dirty plates, and the stripped carcass of a turkey lying bare in the center. Judy, my neighbor, tried to cut the silence. "Oh, Effie," she said softly. "We didn't see you there." "Owen, get your mom a plate." Jessica smiled that fake perfect smile. "Oh, don't worry," she said. "We saved her a plate." Owen stood up, his chair scraping across the floor, and walked to the kitchen. The room was dead silent. Only the hum of the refrigerator filled the air. When he came back, he wasn't holding a plate. He was holding a plastic bag. Inside, greasy scraps, bones, soggy stuffing, and the remains of what used to be dinner. He held it out to me. "This is your food now," he said softly. Then one last word. Freeloader. That word hit harder than any slap ever could. No one moved. Judy gasped. Jessica laughed. Nervous, brittle, hollow. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just took the bag from his hand. The plastic was slick with grease, still warm from his touch. I crouched down, set it gently on the floor by the door, and said, calm as ever, "Thanks for clearing that up." Silence. The kind that fills a room like fog. I turned and walked upstairs. Slow, steady, each step heavier than the last. At the top, I looked back one more time. Owen stood there, frozen. Jessica poured herself more wine. Someone tried to laugh, but it died halfway. I closed my bedroom door. Downstairs, Jessica's voice floated up. "Well," she said lightly, "that was dramatic. Who wants more pie?" I sat on my bed, hands folded in my lap, staring at nothing. The ache in my chest was quiet, too deep for tears. Her laughter faded, and in that silence, I realized something. Real anger doesn't scream. It doesn't break things. It just sits in your bones and waits. By the time their laughter was gone, I already knew that greasy bag of scraps was the last thing they'd ever get from me. Morning came slow, the kind of slow that feels heavy, like the world's holding its breath. I sat on the edge of my bed, suitcase open beside me, the air still thick with last night's silence. Downstairs, I could hear the faint clatter of dishes, Jessica's voice drifting in and out like static. They were cleaning up, or pretending to. The clock read 6:02. I hadn't slept. I moved quietly, careful not to wake the ghosts of that house or the people pretending to live like family inside it. Folded shirts, a sweater, my old photograph album. That was it. 20 minutes later, the suitcase zipped shut, a sound sharper than I expected. As I passed the mirror, I caught my reflection, eyes tired, face calm, not angry anymore, just done. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd stood in that kitchen last night. She looked lighter somehow, even with a bag full of everything she owned. The floor creaked as I stepped into the hallway. I paused outside Owen's door. That door had stickers on it once. Stars, superheroes, little fingerprints smudged across the paint. Now it was just wood, plain and closed. For a moment I almost knocked. Almost. But almost had become the story of my life with him. So I turned away. Downstairs the dining room was a mess. The smell of cold gravy and burnt candles hung in the air. The same plastic bag still sat by the door. Untouched. I stepped around it. My purse sat on the counter right beside the empty wine bottles. Underneath it, a little white envelope. His name on the front. Owen. Inside, a debit card, the one he thought was his. When I'd given him access to my account, I told myself it was temporary, just until he and Jessica got back on their feet. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of overdrafts, accidental transfers, and little white lies. 3 years of him saying, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll pay you back." I slid the envelope onto the table, right next to an untouched pie. Apple, his favorite. Then I took one last look around the house. The pictures, the faded curtains, the little burn mark on the counter from his first science project. Every piece of it held a story. And I was done being the only one who remembered them. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting. My breath came out in clouds as I walked to the car. I started the engine, let it hum for a moment, and looked back at the house. The porch light still on, glowing like it was waiting for someone who'd never return. The phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Owen's name flashing again and again. I didn't answer. Not this time. After a while, the buzzing stopped. Then came the text. "Mom, my card's not working." "What did you do?" I stared at it for a long second. Then I smiled. The road stretched out in front of me, empty, quiet, wide open. Somewhere behind me, my son was realizing what freeloader really meant. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty, just free. The thing about silence is, it's loud when you're guilty. By noon, the house was too quiet. No clinking dishes, no humming upstairs, no sound of my footsteps. Just him, Owen, pacing across the kitchen floor with his phone in hand, checking, calling, checking again. He tried the card 3 times. Declined. Every time. Jessica sat at the table, arms crossed, scrolling through her phone like she didn't notice, but her jaw was tight. Her wine glass was still half full from last night. "Did you mess with the account?" he asked. No answer. He tried again, louder. Jess, seriously. Did you move the money? She didn't even look up. Maybe your mom finally did, she said flatly. About time. The words hung in the air, sharp, cold, and just true enough to sting. He grabbed his keys, stormed out the front door, and nearly tripped over the plastic bag still sitting by the threshold. The one he'd handed me. The one I left behind. He froze. For a second, his throat tightened. Then he kicked it aside and left grease smears on the tile. The bank confirmed it an hour later. The accounts were empty. Every joint card closed. Every auto payment stopped. She cleaned house. Completely. Jessica didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't have to. The look on her face said enough. Owen threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall and cracked. Then he sank onto the couch, hands buried in his hair, staring at nothing. It wasn't just about the money. It was the realization that somewhere between the jokes, the dinners, and the excuses, he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He hadn't just lost his mom. He'd lost the last person who ever forgave him without asking. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves scraped against the porch. A sound small enough to notice when there's nothing left to fill the space. By sunset, Jessica packed a bag. She didn't say where she was going, just that she needed air. He didn't stop her. He couldn't. When the door shut behind her, the house finally sounded the way he'd made me feel, empty. Later that night, he walked upstairs. Her apron was still hanging on the chair. The air still smelled faintly like cinnamon and sage. He opened the window. Cold air rushed in. And for the first time in years, Owen cried. Because that's the thing about cruelty. You don't realize how deep it cuts until there's no one left to forgive you. The road stretched farther than I remembered. Miles of cracked asphalt, half-frozen fields, and the kind of sky that looks too big to belong to anyone. I didn't have a plan. Just a tank of gas, $87 in cash, and a quiet heart. The kind that only beats because it has to. The town limit sign disappeared in the rearview mirror, and with it, the last piece of my old life. I drove until the radio lost signal. Then I kept driving. The sun rose behind me like it was trying to catch up. It never did. By late afternoon, I found myself in a town I didn't know. Population, maybe 2,000. The kind of place that still had payphones and handwritten help wanted signs. I pulled into a small diner, neon sign buzzing, parking lot empty except for a single red truck that looked as tired as I felt. The waitress inside couldn't have been more than 25. Name tag said, Maggie. She smiled like she meant it. Long drive? She asked. Long life, I answered. That got a laugh. A real one. The first I'd heard in years. I ordered black coffee and a slice of pie I didn't want. Apple, again. Funny how that happens. The place smelled like burnt toast and old memories. There was a small board by the counter. Rooms for rent. Call Tom. I wrote the number down. By nightfall, I was standing in front of a tiny apartment above a hardware store, peeling paint, a single window. Perfect. Tom was kind. Didn't ask questions. Didn't care where I came from. Cash is fine, he said. That was all I needed to hear. I unpacked my suitcase. 3 shirts, a sweater, that old photo album. He set it on the nightstand and didn't open it. Not yet. The bed creaked when I sat down. Outside, the streetlights hummed. A stray dog barked somewhere down the road. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like someone's mother or someone's burden. Just someone. The phone buzzed again. Same name, same missed call. I watched the screen glow in the dark, then fade to black. No more answering for people who only remember you when they need something. I made myself a promise right there in that half-lit room. From now on, I'd build a life that was mine, even if it was small, even if no one ever said thank you again. I poured the rest of the coffee into the sink. It steamed for a second, then vanished down the drain, kind of like the last 20 years. Out the window, the sky was bruised purple. Somewhere beyond it, my son was learning what silence really sounds like. And somewhere here, in this quiet little nowhere, I was learning how to breathe again. The road stretched farther than I remembered. Miles of cracked asphalt, half-frozen fields, and the kind of sky that looks too big to belong to anyone. I didn't have a plan. Just a tank of gas, $87 in cash, and a quiet heart. The kind that only beats because it has to. The town limit sign disappeared in the rearview mirror, and with it, the last piece of my old life. I drove until the radio lost signal. Then I kept driving. The sun rose behind me like it was trying to catch up. It never did. By late afternoon, I found myself in a town I didn't know. Population, maybe 2,000. The kind of place that still had payphones and handwritten help wanted signs. I pulled into a small diner, neon sign buzzing, parking lot empty except for a single red truck that looked as tired as I felt. The waitress inside couldn't have been more than 25. Name tag said, Maggie. She smiled like she meant it. Long drive? She asked. Long life, I answered. That got a laugh. A real one. The first I'd heard in years. I ordered black coffee and a slice of pie I didn't want. Apple, again. Funny how that happens. The place smelled like burnt toast and old memories. There was a small board by the counter. Rooms for rent. Call Tom. I wrote the number down. By nightfall, I was standing in front of a tiny apartment above a hardware store, peeling paint, a single window. Perfect. Tom was kind. Didn't ask questions. Didn't care where I came from. Cash is fine, he said. That was all I needed to hear. I unpacked my suitcase, 3 shirts, a sweater, that old photo album. He set it on the nightstand and didn't open it. Not yet. The bed creaked when I sat down. Outside, the streetlights hummed. A stray dog barked somewhere down the road. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like someone's mother or someone's burden. Just someone. The phone buzzed again. Same name, same missed call. I watched the screen glow in the dark, then fade to black. No more answering for people who only remember you when they need something. I made myself a promise right there in that half-lit room. From now on, I'd build a life that was mine, even if it was small, even if no one ever said thank you again. I poured the rest of the coffee into the sink. It steamed for a second, then vanished down the drain, kind of like the last 20 years. Out the window, the sky was bruised purple. Somewhere beyond it, my son was learning what silence really sounds like. And somewhere here, in this quiet little nowhere, I was learning how to breathe again. The days got longer, not in hours, but in wait. Owen hadn't been sleeping. The house was too quiet now, and silence has a way of repeating everything you don't want to hear. He'd tried to fill it, music, TV, noise, but nothing covered the sound of that word he'd thrown across the table. Freeloader. It echoed in his head like a bad song that wouldn't quit. He sold his watch first, then the car. Jessica had taken hers when she left, along with most of what wasn't nailed down. He didn't blame her. He couldn't blame anyone anymore. Bills stacked on the counter. He opened one, then another, then stopped bothering. He'd never realized how much she'd been covering, how much she'd been keeping afloat. The lights went out on a Tuesday. He sat in the dark for hours, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her number. He didn't press call. The neighborhood had changed too. Judy, the neighbor who'd seen it all, stopped waving from her porch. People whispered when he walked by. He could feel it, the pity. Once he'd been proud to live in that house. Now every corner of it was a reminder of what he'd lost. One night, he opened the fridge, empty, except for a single plastic bag. Cold scraps. He didn't even remember keeping it. For a long moment, he just stared at it. Then he sat down on the floor and laughed. The kind of laugh that sounds too close to crying. He started working at a gas station after that. Night shifts mostly. Just enough to cover rent after he sold the house. He didn't say much, and nobody asked questions. Customers came and went. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the silence. It was better than thinking. Sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, he'd take out his phone and scroll through old photos. Birthdays, Christmas mornings. Her hand's always there somewhere. Serving, fixing, holding. He'd swipe through them all, then stop at one picture. Him as a kid, missing a tooth, arms wrapped around her neck. He didn't delete it. He couldn't. He started keeping a notebook. Not letters, not really. Just thoughts. Half sentences. Guilt spilled out sideways. You deserve better. I should have said thank you more. I don't even know what your favorite song was anymore. Months passed like that. The world kept turning, and he kept waiting for a sign that she was okay. But she didn't call, didn't write, didn't appear. Just gone, like smoke that used to smell like home. One night, a stranger came in for gas. Older man, beat-up pickup, paid in cash. They got to talking. Nothing deep, just weather and gas prices. Before leaving, the man said something that made Owen freeze. Met a lady last week. Runs the counter at a diner up north. Sweet woman. Quiet. Reminds me of my mom. Owen's heart kicked once. Hard. He didn't ask for details. Didn't need to. He just knew. That night, for the first time in months, he looked in the mirror and saw someone he didn't hate as much as before. Someone who wanted to try. Funny thing about regret, it doesn't fade with time. It just sits there, like a bad tattoo you keep covered up but still feel underneath. Winter rolled into spring before Owen even noticed. The air felt different now, softer, like the world was moving on without him. He was still at the gas station, still stacking shelves, counting change, pretending that working nights was a choice. He'd grown quieter, older somehow, like guilt had added 10 years to his face. One slow Tuesday, he caught himself staring at a bag of marshmallows on the shelf. For no reason. Then it hit him. His mom used to roast those in the backyard every 4th of July. She'd always burn hers on purpose. Said she liked the crunch. He had to turn away before the lump in his throat turned into something else. The next morning, he packed a duffel bag. No big speech, no plan. Just an address he'd scribbled from that old man at the gas pump. A diner off Route 12, 3 towns over. Didn't even know the name of it. He filled the tank, grabbed a cup of gas station coffee that tasted like regret, and hit the road. The drive wasn't long, but it felt endless. The kind of trip where the radio loses signal halfway through, and your own thoughts start playing louder than the music ever could. Every sign, every stretch of highway, felt like it was leading somewhere he wasn't ready to be. He caught himself rehearsing what he'd say if he saw her. Mom, I'm sorry. Too short. Too easy. Mom, I was wrong. Better, but still not enough. Nothing felt enough. By the time he rolled into town, the sun was hanging low, throwing that tired orange glow across the street. The town looked like it had been forgotten by the rest of the world. Old pickup trucks, cracked sidewalks, and one lonely stoplight blinking yellow. He spotted it before he even parked. The diner, small, plain, with a flickering neon sign that read Maggie's Place. He pushed open the door. Bell jingled. Inside, the smell of bacon and old coffee hit him like a memory. A couple of locals sat at the counter. One guy reading a paper, two old women gossiping by the window. The waitress behind the counter looked young, dark curls, bright eyes. But not her, not his mom. "Coffee?" she asked. He nodded, voice stuck somewhere between his chest and throat. She poured him a cup and smiled. "You new in town?" He shrugged. "Just passing through?" That earned a polite nod, the kind people give when they don't pry. He sat there for a while, staring at the reflection in the chrome napkin holder. Same tired face, same eyes he'd seen in hers. He scanned the diner. A framed photo hung behind the counter, a group shot from some town fair. And there she was, in the back, barely noticeable. Apron on, half smile, standing next to that same waitress. It was like getting punched without being touched. He leaned closer, pretending to read the specials board, just to look a second longer. She looked peaceful. Older, sure, but lighter somehow. Like the weight she used to carry had finally found somewhere else to go. "Everything all right?" the waitress asked. He blinked. Yeah, just looks familiar, that's all." She smiled. "That's Maggie's mom. She works mornings. Sweet lady, quiet, though his heart tripped. She works mornings." He checked his watch. 4:42 p.m. He'd missed her. He left a tip that was way too big, walked out before his legs gave him a reason to stay, and sat in his car in the parking lot, hands gripping the wheel. The sun had dipped low enough to paint the diner windows gold. He could see silhouettes moving inside, laughter, clinking cups, the life he'd ruined still moving on without him. He thought about walking back in, about waiting for morning, about saying something, anything. But what do you say to someone you've broken? There's no Hallmark card for that, so he just sat there, watching the door that didn't open for him until the sky went black. When he finally drove off, he didn't look back, not because he didn't want to, but because he knew if he did, he wouldn't leave. Somewhere behind him in that quiet little town, his mother was probably washing coffee mugs, wiping counters, humming to herself. Free. And for the first time, Owen hoped she stayed that way. Funny how life has a way of circling back, not fast, not loud, just quiet, like the tide creeping up when you're not looking. It had been almost a year since that Thanksgiving night. Effie's little rented place sat on the edge of town, a one-story cottage with peeling paint and a porch swing that groaned louder than it moved. She built a new kind of peace there. Morning coffee on the porch. Evenings spent with a paperback and an old quilt. The kind of silence that used to feel empty. Now it felt earned. Work at Maggie's place was steady. She knew the regulars by name now. Truckers, school teachers, widowers, dreamers. They'd sit, order their eggs, tell her stories, and sometimes, just sometimes, she'd tell a few of her own. Not the painful ones. Not yet. One evening she was closing up, the radio humming low, a soft country tune fading into static, when she noticed something tucked under the sugar jar near the register. An envelope, no return address, just her name, written in a handwriting she could have recognized blindfolded. Effie. Her fingers hesitated before picking it up. For a long moment, she just stared. The edges were creased, like whoever sent it had held it too long before letting it go. She took it home, sat at her kitchen table, the same one she'd gotten for $20 at a yard sale, and opened it slow. Inside was a single page, folded twice, written in blue ink. Mom, I saw you. Not long ago. You were working at a diner off Route 12. You looked happy. I didn't come in. I didn't think I should. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I don't have an excuse for that night. I don't know what I was trying to prove. Maybe I thought I'd grown up when I hadn't. Maybe I thought you'd always be there to forgive me. But I see it now. All the things you did for me. All the things I took for granted. I'm trying to be better, working hard, paying rent. Still mess up, but I'm trying. I don't expect you to write back. I just needed you to know that I know now. Love. Owen. Effie sat there for a long time, the kind of long that doesn't tick on a clock. The ink was smudged in a few places, like he'd stopped and started, maybe even cried. Her lips pressed tight, and for the first time in months, she let herself whisper his name aloud. Owen. It sounded softer than she remembered. She folded the letter again, neatly this time, and slipped it back into the envelope. Then she got up, walked to the little cabinet near the window, and pulled out a box. Inside were old photos, postcards, and one wrinkled recipe card. Her mother's pumpkin pie, the same one she'd baked every Thanksgiving. She placed Owen's letter on top. That night, she baked a pie. First one she'd made since leaving home. The smell filled the house, cinnamon, butter, and something bittersweet. When it was done, she sat at the table, sliced one clean piece, and took a bite. It didn't taste like regret anymore. It tasted like closure. Weeks later, she finally wrote back. Just a short note. No lectures, no guilt, just truth. Owen, I'm glad you're finding your way. The road's long, but you'll make it. I'm doing all right, too. Maybe one day when the timing feels right, you can come by for coffee. Love, Mom. She didn't mail it that night. Didn't need to. Just knowing the words existed was enough. For now. She placed the note beside his letter, blew out the candle, and let the quiet fill the room again. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling through the trees. The porch swing moved all on its own, slow, steady, like it was rocking away the ghosts that used to live there. And somewhere, out on a dark stretch of highway, a young man in a beat-up truck looked up at the stars, and for the first time in a long time, didn't feel so lost. Because sometimes love doesn't end in forgiveness. It ends in understanding. And sometimes that's enough.